And our goal is to be back in Portland by Friday at 3 o'clock or earlier so that Thomas can go to prom that night. And, cause he's coming with me. And then,
He's coming with you?
yeah.
Oh, so fun.
Time.
And then
We
we
drive
have to
straight
work.
through or spend the night?
We're gonna leave, Saturday. We were trying to get back Saturday. So we're gonna leave super early on Friday, drive to Connecticut to our friends that live in Connecticut, stay there, leave early and get to Portland, which is so it's 7 hours and then 7 hours. And then Thomas is either gonna get on a bus or Peter's gonna meet us in Portland and take him home to get ready for prom, and me and Izzy are staying and working our first wedding. So we're gonna be toast. And we're like paper, rock, scissoring who gets to drive home
Oh my word.
from Bangor to Portland.
That's awesome. That's crazy.
Let the games begin.
Let the games begin.
This thing is a lot exporting. Just give me a hot minute.
And then it goes from there to spring school. I have to go right back to school and that Monday. So I'll travel for 4 days
And then you go to Europe.
and then we go to Europe on the 22nd.
Wait, spring school is when Izzy's home?
She starts, spring school just started, but I just mean like I don't even get like a Monday. So like I'll work Saturday, we'll go to church on Sunday, I'll probably take a killer nap, but then Monday morning I teach again. So
And she's just home hanging with you.
she's
She can help you.
she's so
Be your
excited to
helper.
help
So
with
cute.
us. Yeah. It will be super.
Okay, kids, are we ready?
I am so curiously ready.
So seriously ready. All right.
Oh, I'm doing my yawn. It means I'm nervous.
Really?
No, not really.
Okay, kids, ready? Here we go. Today, dun, 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 dun. I have a cough drop in my mouth because I'm struggling with a cold, so I sound a little manly,
Our
but
fisherman's friend.
Oh my gosh, this
I'm
is
gonna
the
take one
worst.
of those.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually getting sick.
it's menthol. I'm sorry, guys. Our kids it's track season, and so we're standing in hours of rain and freezing cold and for days on end. But okay, the topic of the day.
Vicks.
A++ nerd alert. Social media. Dun, dun, dun.
Right. Loaded. So good.
Is it good? Is it bad? When should our kids have it? Should they ever have it? All the questions about all the things. And so I did write this, which I'll break out and we'll talk more throughout it. But feel free to pipe in at any point in time. But when I research things, I literally write papers on them. So that's kind of what this is. Okay. So this is a big topic, and I do not think that there is a neat and tidy answer with a neat and tidy one-size-fits-all bow that we can wrap around it, right? Around this table, there's 3 mothers with 10 kids between us.
Wow.
So at minimum, there is 3 different ways that we've handled it, but typically more than that if we individualize our kids, which we do, right? And so we have handled our social media with our families that many different ways. When you break it down per individual child. So, and I think that you'll find that in any conversation you have with anybody, right? So, social media is here to stay, so we need to figure out what to do with it. But also we need to seek the Lord's face for our own individual families and children on how we go about handling it. And what I want to say at the very beginning is I do not believe in fear-based parenting. I don't think that's how we parent our kids, right? But I also believe that as Christians, we should look different from the world. So figuring out how to do this dance with all of the individual personalities of each one of our kids, different convictions as parents and families will be a lot, and it will require lots of prayer and a ton of open and honest communication as families. And so my goal today when I was sitting down to write this, because this is kind of like a soapbox topic of mine, but is to maybe, to educate a bit on resources that are out there for parents, because I just don't feel like there's no time. Well, I think there actually is a time, but you have to look for it. And I feel like a lot of times, I don't feel like it should be a willy-nilly decision that we make. So to educate a bit on resources that are out there for parents, to encourage mothers like us who are in the trenches with their kiddos at media right now, but also maybe to help younger mothers who are not yet in the social media season yet, and maybe offer you some resources to read and watch and be able to ponder and prepare for when your kids get older. I want to give you some tools for preparation so that you can have a plan and so you don't just fall into it. I don't think this is just something you just fall into because one day your kid's like, hey mom, can I have a phone? You say, oh, my kid wants a phone, sure. Right? The crazy thing to think about is that we are the first generation of mothers raising digital natives. This is the only thing our kids know. when you really think about that, right? This is the only truth they know. They don't have anything. We have a childhood to look back on that wasn't saturated in media, right? So we remember things that used to be. Our kids do not know that. This is the only thing that they know.
Yeah.
And so they've never known a life without screens. And we, as mothers of these teens, cannot go to our own mothers for advice, right? Like we could have with every other parenting thing, like breastfeeding, temper tantrums, potty training, whatever. We could go to our moms for advice or other older mother mentors and say, hey, how did you handle this? Like, this is happening with my kid. Our moms can't give us advice on this. They don't know because we were raised in the era of dial-up and phones attached to the wall with cords, right?
Yeah.
So just interesting when we think about what's happening right now. There's no wisdom being handed down to us from our parents or our grandparents. So guess who's doing the educating? Big
Social
tech.
media.
Big tech. Oh, you want to be better connected to your kid? Well, for $5 extra, you can have an extra phone for your family. How cool is that? Do you know what I mean? Like, well, that seems, so many things seem like a great plan, but maybe they're not. So, like, remember when McDonald's first came out, we consumed. Then years later, we realized how bad it was for us, right? Same with cigarettes. Like, ads were super cool, and it was a cool thing. There's a smoking pole down at the edge of the driveway at the schools. Now we know years later that McDonald's and cigarettes are both bad for us. But unlike McDonald's and cigarettes, we know that media is surely not all bad. There's good things for sure. My whole business is media based. I love it. Connection, information, convenience, things like that. But I think it would behoove us to do our research and to also just be really aware that big tech and all of these media platforms, they are not for our children, right? Our kids' mental, social, and emotional well-being is not the goal of these companies. Protecting our kids is not their goal. And I think it's just really good to be aware of that. Have either of you guys watched the documentary, The Social Dilemma, on Netflix?
My husband did.
It is.
I'm afraid to watch it.
No, it's not scary or bad, but it's super eye-opening, and we watched it as a family just recently. Really, really good. And I think it's, and we said to our kids, because we've delayed a long time before we allowed anything, that we're going to watch this as a family. And there's another documentary called Childhood 2.0 that you could watch with your older kids, maybe not like London and Henry's age, but this is how our children from millennia, childhood has looked pretty much the same. Kids go outside, they play, they use their imagination, they play in the dirt, they go explore. But our kids' generation, Childhood 2.0, this is a new era of childhood, and it looks different than it's ever looked in the history of our existence, right? And so it's just good to be aware of, it's just very, very eye-opening, right? Also super interesting that the only two quote-unquote companies where the product users are called consumers, we're called users, is the drug industry and social media. We're called users. That's the only two arenas where we're called that. Okay.
Wow.
So just interesting, right?
And I just saw on that the effect if you are. I have a family member whose daughter is addicted, like officially addicted.
Yeah.
So much so that it's like she doesn't know how to detach.
Right.
And we were talking the other day, and she was like, "It's like she's a zombie."
Right.
And it's almost like she's on drugs. Like the effect
is very similar.
is very similar.
Right.
Yeah.
A big thing that the social dilemma talks about, what it is it's these a lot of men and women who were the creators, like it's the president and CEO, the former president of Pinterest, and one of the creators of Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat. It's all the media platforms, but some of the major originators, they're talking and they're sharing like, whoa, we're like 20 plus years into this now. We're just realizing now kind of the Pandora's box that we opened.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I
And
mean,
so-
Facebook was made to make fun of and rate girls in college.
Really?
Snapchat was a sexting app called
Yeah.
Peekaboo.
Oh.
So, okay. So, one thing that the social dilemma talks about is that whenever you're on a platform where you as the consumer pay nothing, which is all of our platforms, right? Just know that it's not really free. We are the product that is getting sold. And that's what this documentary is all about. Everything's getting recorded. How long we spend on certain ads, what we pay attention to, what we watch, our political stance, the things we like to purchase. It's all being monitored.
Yep.
Okay. And our feeds get filled with those things that will make us stay on longer. So my feed does not look like your feed. And your feed does not look like my feed. That was new to me after
you didn't know that?
watching that Social Dilemma. And so what we're getting isn't even really truth. It's my truth.
Right. That's
Oh,
why
I could tell that because I'm so
But even politically, it is
that's
it's
why
polarizing.
I
It's
think that's
intentionally
yes,
polarizing.
that's why I was gonna say is that politically, I
Right.
think that's why our political landscape
For
is
sure.
so
Mhm.
traumatic as it is right now because
Right.
you're
So this
only
is just
seeing
good
things you believe in.
Right. But good for our kids to know, right, before we give them free reign on a platform, to say, yeah, have at it, because suddenly their world, their feed is going to be filled with, oh, everybody thinks this way. They surely don't. You know what I mean? And, but also just that we're getting facts in air quotes that aren't even necessarily true. And so just to know the reasons behind the things, right? And so, and also to be super aware that if you're on a platform and as a 40-year-old woman, I'm like, this is pretty harmless. My feed is going to look very different from my teen son's feed, right? And so just important to be aware of this. The like button specifically is the mechanism that companies use to gauge engagement and sell advertising. So, and when the man who created the like button, he said, I originally created just because I thought it'd be kind of cool, kind of fun. Like, hey, I like this. Just a fun way to engage. That was his intent when he created it. But what it's become is that's the mechanism that just gauges for our feeds. Oh, this is what she likes. This is what she spends time on. This is what she buys. This is what she believes to filter your feed. And so that's what gets sold. We are the product getting sold.
The man that invented cookies, which is what is that that does that takes all your likes and then produces the ads that then follow you. Have you ever noticed that you go and look at something and then all of a sudden it follows you everywhere?
I noticed that if I say something.
Oh,
Yeah. So that thing is called cookies. And you know
Right.
sometimes when you go on a website it says allow, you have
I
to
accept
allow
cookies.
Yes,
or-
accept. So that guy, I saw an interview with him and his intention was kind of like that same thing. He was like, I just thought it'd be a really great way for people to be able to know what they did. And it's been totally, he's like, I'm really sorry about it. Like he
Right,
actually
yeah.
like made a public apology. Like that's not,
Right.
you're now being stalked and
Right,
sold to major corporations. Really sorry about that.
So things that make you go, right? So I just listed a couple things. Bill Gates did not let his kid have a cell phone until he was at least 14, vehemently opposed to it. A majority of the big tech executives who create our social media platforms that are specifically geared to addict our children send their children to Waldorf schools that are almost completely tech free. They are intentionally not exposing their own children to social media platforms or high tech lifestyles. They'll say, I vehemently oppose my child will not have this. And they're the creators of it.
What? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Okay.
That's horrible.
So just some things.
I just saw a documentary about that too, or a little about this man that was talking about, because I teach in a Charlotte Mason Montessori, and about how the major influencers of the world all went to a Montessori school, and they do the same. They
send their kids.
They send their kids to Waldorf Montessori.
It's interesting to pay attention to what the creator do when you put your money where your mouth is. You created these things. What are you letting your children have and do?
It also just reveals how hungry they are for money.
Oh,
yeah.
for sure. And going back
love
to
money
this, they are
first.
not for our children, okay,
Right.
or for us.
Right.
Okay. In 2007, the smartphone was released. Just some A++ statistics, right, from Miss Nerd. In 2012, the like button was introduced to apps. And this was when, in 2012, this was the year that we started to see a severe mental health crisis start to explode with everyone, especially our youth. There have been enough years with our kids on it now, so from 2007 to 2024, from the time the smartphone was released until now. There's just now, been enough years with our kids on it now for data to begin to compile and research to begin to add up. The science behind the like button is there's a natural built-in reward for pleasure, right? Dopamine is released and it's addictive, and that's the intention. We will need more and more time to be satisfied, and that's how they get paid for us to spend more and more time online. So this takes over opportunities for our kids to be bored, right? And I was thinking that, because when I'm writing this, I'm just thinking about it as I'm doing my life. And like when we were little kids, when we went through the stores with our mothers, if we were young enough to sit in the carts, I usually had to walk beside with my hands on the cart. I could have brought a book or just looked around. Like that was my options. If you walk through Target today, like do a test next time you go to Target where you see moms with their young kids in their carts, and I guarantee the majority of them have a little iPad or their mama's phone where they're just playing a little game, which makes sense. They're entertained, they're quiet, the mom can get a couple hours, she can drink her coffee, right? But that we start that at that age of 2, 3, and then it goes to the iPad, then it goes to a phone at 8 or 9, whatever. So like this is the reality of our kids from the time that they can hold a device. They know how to swipe, click, password, everything, as good as me. But like, right, so like we weren't introduced until almost adulthood, but now not really, but I mean,
I was
whatever.
college when I got my first
Yeah.
flip phone.
And so this is the
Pink
reality of the world right now, right? From the time you can hold a little thing and your mom downloads a couple little fun apps so she can walk through Target together. I'm not saying it's even necessarily bad. This is just like, this is our world,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So
It's conditioning.
I read a quote that made me so sad. It said, "It has been said that childhood ends the moment a phone is placed into their hands."
I said that to Henry the other day, and he's like, bet. Or he said word
Facts.
or bet,
Just
facts
facts.
or something
Mhm.
like that. He's 13 now, and he's crossed over into puberty and all the things, and we waited to 12 for him to have a cell phone. He had a smartphone with every, like, games and stuff, I think, since he was like 10. Before that, it wasn't. And we made a point to have more Montessori children, like when they were little years. We did not, they didn't even want to watch TV. I would say maybe a few times we resorted to in the car,
Mhm.
especially like for long rides, but it was like we did try to keep their little years protected, but the older that they get now, especially when all their friends,
Right.
like that's the
Right.
communication.
Mhm.
That's the way they communicate. And I think what's different about all of our lives now is we never stop communicating.
Right.
From the minute we wake
right.
up to the minute we're
Right.
communicating with lots of people. Whereas
Yeah, talk about that in a minute.
our life before
FOMO.
smartphone,
There's downtime, like
even just not even FOMO aside, there's nothing bad about communicating. I actually can carry on dozens and dozens and dozens more nice, like really sweet relationships with this easily, because I can just text and Snapchat and Marco Polo and make posts, and people feel connected who don't even ever talk to me, and they want to see pictures of my house and my family, and they feel connected. But that's all new. Before this, you went home to your family, and that was it. And you were home, and you were just home. You weren't talking
your brain
to
had a little bit of a break.
you weren't talking to everybody else. You were
Right.
just talking to your own people, and that was it. And that,
For some people it was great, and for other people like me that was awful.
That's
so that's
true.
why
That is
I
true.
feel like for me social media has been like, I sometimes wonder what it would have been like if I had Instagram or Pinterest or Reels to see, because like I'm sure my feed is very different from you. I have lots of therapists on mine talking about different things that in trauma situations. I follow a couple of trauma therapists and doctors and psychologists, and it would be so different. Like I think for my life, because I did get off the bus and go home, and it was
awful.
awful.
Yeah.
So it wasn't for me. It wasn't it was actually the opposite. Like I got off the bus into a place where I had to be on hyper alert, and so I mean, just to put that out
It
there.
also affects men and women different, like boys and girls differently. And boys,
And
like
ages
there's this
differently,
whole
too.
emasculating of men happening to. And
That's a podcast on its own.
It is, and actually, I would be happy to have my husband as a guest speaker, because he has been studying the whole that whole I forget what it's called. It's something cell something. It's like when video games when you become a deep men, they actually become like completely incapable of manhood. Like they don't even.
Incredibly passive.
And a lot of them end up becoming criminals, and but it's like this total emasculation happening and total inability after a certain amount of time to come back into reality. So they're not able to function.
Yeah.
They're not able to have families. They're not able to carry on a relationship with a woman. They're not able to carry on a relationship with another healthy man.
Right. It's like pornography, right? If you get so sucked into that, it's so easy to just watch and consume than to be pulled out into the real life and actually have a real relationship with a real woman who has real feelings and actually has real preferences. And like, it's impossible if you're so in the world of non-reality.
Well, and it's fun, it's exciting. It's like I get to be a hero every single minute when I'm playing this game, or like I get to save somebody's, you know what I mean? It's like it's in your brain. And then when you have to I'm just like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom and I gotta eat, and there's dirty laundry over there, and oh, I gotta take my kid to school, or like be present as a dad, or it's almost like you can't.
It's hard to mesh the world.
And the world suddenly looks so dull and gray compared to like this perfectly lit, perfectly sculpted world that you're entering in. And my kids do play video games. It's heavily monitored.
Yep.
It shuts off. And they have to ask for more time, and most of the time the answer is no. Unless there's friends over and it's like this thing. It's like it's a limited thing. But if you're allowed to do this 10, 12, 13, 16, 18 hours a day.
I'm very into video games, and so it was actually kind of a running joke. And so just I think this year someone got we got a PlayStation, or I don't even know what they're called. I think it was a PlayStation or Xbox, and they're allowed. They take it out on Thursdays because that's when my school is done. And so, and then they can, but the thing is they don't have, because they weren't raised in it, they don't have the longevity. They're like, this is okay, this doesn't even make sense to them. But on that, when you play with your friends, you can see the hours clocked. Did you know that? You can go on to like a menu and it can show you all the different hours because
of your friends.
And there are some of their friends that it's like 16, 17 hours a day.
Right.
And then they're in college, and they're in college, and so I'm like, when are they going to classes?
Right.
So they're literally staying up through the night to play.
Right.
To me, that's.
We had a friend, like it was a long time ago. I guess he wasn't really a friend, but acquaintance. And this kid was so smart, and he got into MIT, and he got a job that paid like $400,000. I mean, like he had this incredible career ahead of him, and it was easy. He was so smart, and he got addicted to Halo.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, and that was the game to play. Got addicted to it.
You're catching my cold.
I am. Lost his job and became a recluse and chose video gaming.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he lost everything. Like he lost his standard of living and everything. Like his life is just, that's all it is now. That's what he chose. And he could have had like anything and everything. And had such a career, had like a life ahead of him, and instead chose that. It's so addicting. And once you cross over, and it's almost like the Shadowlands.
Right.
You've passed into the Shadowlands.
And different things are addictive for different people too. For some it's gaming, for some it's other things, you know?
Yeah.
So anything that's not reality, anything that's virtual is where there's just a bit of the whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, here's an interesting statistic. It used to be 2 weeks between the first sign of suicide to it actually being followed through with a child or a teen in studies. Now, because they're connecting it to online things like sextortion or even just bullying online, whatever, they're seeing hours and even minutes sometimes before a child commits suicide.
Oh my gosh.
So again, we're not to be about fear-based parenting. Those are extreme cases, but we are to be about educating ourselves and the kids, our kids, on just the realities that are out there, and on conversations like that with like really 18 hours a day on a video game when you're supposed to be in college. Like, that's a little crazy. So, okay, I wrote this as something that we just said. Something we talk to our kids a lot about is that technology makes us think that we have a broader capacity than we really do. We were not made to keep up with 600 online friends, 300 online friends, right? God gave us limits for a reason. This is actually a gift. We are limited creatures. And there's only so many relationships we were made to carry and carry well and go deep with. We weren't made to chase the social digital world, right? And so it's stressful. You can see that it's stressful to try to keep up with that many friends. And so it's because it's not what we were made to do.
And it creates FOMO. I think that's where FOMO comes in.
Exactly.
Is that what you were about to say? Sorry.
No, it's good. We also think that we will solve the FOMO by being on these platforms, but oftentimes the opposite happens because now we see all the things that we're left out of.
Yes.
And this is harder for some personalities than others, but we were not intended to know everything about what all of our people are doing.
It actually makes me, the older I get, the more uncomfortable like we did this, like the overshare for me is becoming more and more like I'm struggling with it in myself of like what I want to do. So like for the eclipse, we had I was telling Rach, we had the most amazing day, and it was so precious to me that I was like, I am not putting this on social media. Like, and would it make a great reel? It sure would. It would be the cutest reel, and the snacks and the fun and the thing and the this and the that and I mean, we got to see it on the ice. It was spectacular, but it was like, and
it felt kind of sacred.
It felt sacred that I was like, this was ours.
Yeah.
And not everybody needs to see it. And why am I sharing it? What is the purpose of me sharing this? Is it for me? I was there. I got to see it. Is it to remember it? I have it right here. I have it right here on my phone. I can make it into a little book or a little whatever. Is it to make you guys feel bad that you weren't there with me? Like, what is the purpose of sharing? I guess that's where my crisis is right now.
I mean, I'm a visual person, and I'm an inspiration driven person. So every day I have a love tank of inspiration and visual that needs to be filled. That is my heartbeat. That's the way that I'm made. It used to be magazines and books and things like that, or trying to travel before we had kids to places where I would be super inspired. And now I actually love that I can just, when I'm feeling that need to go on Pinterest and look at a magazine, so to speak.
Yeah.
I also love, I do like having a pulse. I like, especially with my closest people, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, I wouldn't be jealous. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That's really fun. And I feel like I knew what you did, and that doesn't feel hurtful or wrong or anything like that. I think it has to be our hearts.
Right. Yeah, that's what
and our maturity.
So if you are having that struggle, I highly respect that and think that's wonderful that you're in that and that you felt the need to protect it and that you actually did. For me, I go through major seasons where
you're quiet
I'm
online,
sharing a lot and I'm just like explosive and it comes really naturally and I just kind of go with
I
it.
think I am too, because I'm in
I think we all are.
And then other seasons where I'm like, I'm hiding under a rock, yo. I'm hiding
Peace
under
out.
a rock.
Yeah.
And everything that I think winter time I tend to get a little bit more like, all I really want to do is knit, and that doesn't feel very exciting. And it's like I'm more family centric. In the winter, everything feels a little bit more private and not as, I don't know. So I'm letting myself be that. And so I think it can be a seasonal thing, but it also could be a heart space. And if God's working on that part of our heart, I think we need to open and let Him, and have Him like speak a truth where it's like, let's reflect on this together and see like why, what's the motive. Amy and I both do like side gigs where we have to stay out in front for at least a certain amount so that and show personal and things like that, and so that it balances out with the business. So it's like not all business, it's like there's some personal and then there's business, and it's like you kind of have to keep up to a certain extent if you want to do this job well, and so that comes into play.
Right.
But we have people on our team too who hate media and don't.
And
right. Fine.
I have, one of my people that's doing the business the most she's like, it has to be organic, face to face for me, or else I'm just not interested. And I'm just like, that's totally fine. And that's more how I am as well. But what else was I gonna say? I had a point.
You're answering to her not putting the pictures online.
I lost it, but yeah, all the things. I think it's wonderful when people are like, I'm going to take a break.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I love that they just sort of claim it and you don't even know when they'll be back. Yep. I'm always happy to see them back. Sometimes I'm the one taking the break. Yeah. And it's all good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yep. I think that the amount of time is really important. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I don't allow myself anymore because I don't love the I like healthy dopamine, not the addictive dopamine. And so I do not allow myself to scroll.
Okay, yeah.
I don't allow it. Like, I don't do it.
So how do you not scroll?
Well, when I go on Pinterest, my Pinterest is so tailored to my likes now that I can just slowly scroll and look at things and click on them and see and I'll give myself 10 minutes and that kind of fills my love tank a little bit. And then I'll check messages.
It's just not random like real scroll.
I am not spending hours of my life
Mhm.
doing this, where I'm just doom scrolling, where I'm just like, like a
Mhm.
couple of years ago, and we talked about it, TikTok. I was like, I got addicted to TikTok, and I would look forward to at night just sort of doom scrolling. And my husband was talking to me once, and he's like, "Hello," and he said, "You were a zombie. You
Mhm.
weren't even responding to me, and you weren't even looking at anything too. You were just literally stuck on screech like this. You weren't even looking. You were never stopping." It was the weirdest thing. And I saw this sad thing where it's like if you give a screen to a baby or like a toddler, sometimes when you put them down for a nap, they'll be going like this
Wow.
into the air.
Like scrolling the air.
Yeah, like a glitch. I'm like, oh, that's not okay. That is
Crazy
not
stuff.
okay. Yeah.
Good.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Okay, I made a list of like conversations to be having with our kiddos and ourselves, for that matter. That even though it feels real, social media really, in its truest form, is not real social interaction. It's media. It's not true connection. It's social representation, but it's still not really real. And so we need to make sure our kids have it balanced with real social interaction, which I think all of our kids do really well. They have a lot of real face-to-face time with their friends. And we need to balance our real-time interaction with media as well, right? I was listening to a podcast just recently. It was so interesting. He was a Christian counselor, and he said, if your kids are actually interested in dating, he's like, I want you to actually kind of be excited about that, because in today's world, with today's teens, dating is becoming it's becoming no more, because I just have 24 access to you. I can just snap you and text you all day long. And so we don't need to go to the effort of let's actually go bowling together. Let's actually go for a drive together. And so he's like, it's actually becoming no longer a thing. Is that not the most weirdest thing ever?
It's a little bit scary.
I was talking to my older son about that the other day, about dating in general, and he was saying something similar to that, like, and that's what he was like, I've been there, done that, not doing it again, because you feel this need. He's like, he sees the toxicity of it. So a lot of his friends are dating, and he's like, Mom, if they don't snap each other every 45 minutes, she'll get mad.
Right.
It's like, so I'm hanging out with my buddies, and they have to keep snapping to keep connected.
Right.
And he's like, hi. And it
or
stems all to drama. He's like, and then he's
for
like,
sure.
peace out, I'm out.
for sure.
Until I'm ready to marry someone, I don't want anything to do with it, and I want to meet her where we're looking eyeball to eyeball, and we have to live life together. He's like, when I'm in college and I can I was like, oh,
That same
music to
psychologist,
my-
he was like, high school years are not the years where you find your mate. He's like, they might be the years where you find your bridesmaids, your future bridesmaids, but they're not where you're typically where you're gonna find your spouse. But the big thing too is snapping, texting, whatever relationships, they can go, quote in air quotes, way more deeply, more quickly, because you're gonna say things you're more brave to say things via text or snap or whatever the term is than you would do face to face. And so they can tend to take this really weird deep turn,
fake vulnerability.
but then when you're face to face, you don't even know how to speak two real words to each other face to face. And so I tell my boys, if no matter girls, boys, whatever, I don't care if you text them, but if in real time you're not like making eye contact and having conversation with them, that's a conversation for us to have, because that's weird and it's not normal and it's not right. And we're gonna learn social etiquette, Okay, learning the art of learning, and as parents, we are their trainers. The art of real, legitimate conversation is something that we can help to teach and train our kids. We also need to teach our kids to be producers and not just consumers. And that's like, I love if you want to go on Pinterest for some art ideas or a music app to learn a new song or whatever. I do not love if you want to just sit and watch YouTube shorts. That is a waste of time to me. So a little bit of time to veg at the end of the day, fine, but that is a limited amount of time. You're not just going to sit and consume mindless whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want you to be a producer as well. And also, we need to teach our kids to be fully present with the people who they are with in real time. Okay? Jesse knows if he has friends over at our house and they're all sitting lined up on the couch and they're all on their phone texting friends who actually aren't here, that I'm going to say something about it.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, guys, you wanted to get together with each other and you're here. So play a game, play guitars, go shoot hoops, but don't be texting your other friends.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like be in each other's presence, and that's what they do. That's this realm. But when you're in my house, it's not gonna be.
It's hard because our phone has all these alerts and notifications.
Mhm.
Like, oh, let me just check.
Intentionally so.
Right. Intentionally so. Distracted.
Turn them
Mhm.
all
I am
off.
so guilty of that. And like,
But that's true social etiquette, right?
Right.
Like if you and I go to a restaurant together, it's
Mhm.
super rude if you're
Mhm.
texting everybody else. But we went to lunch together.
and it feels weird and it feels icky and
Icky.
it
dirty.
feels yucky, and so
Yeah.
but that's something we have to train our kids. They don't know any different.
Right.
They don't know any different.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I think as parents, we also need to be okay with allowing our kids to get bored once in a while and not just give the quick fix of media amusement. We need to teach them wise time management. And even just to help them navigate, is what I'm doing making me better? Is it dumbing me down? Am I neglecting things in real life? Jesse had a chance to buy a gaming system for super cheap, like 6 months ago. I think $60, this whole system. And we didn't say no, but I said, my question to you is good, better, best. You know, he's not a huge gamer, but he likes to do it when he's at friends' houses. But like neither Kevin or I were as kids either, so it's just not something that we really did as a family. And so, but he misses playing that game that all your kids play. I don't know what it is.
Fortnite.
Okay. And so he's like, it'd be so fun, and you know, we could talk to each other and whatever. And so it was a separate time conversation. And so I said, okay, for me, the question is good, better, best. Like, is this the best use of that $60 of yours? Like, is that really what you want to spend it on? Because that's like 2 climbs, because you love climbing.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's, 6 times to go to the rec center to play basketball. And Kevin's like, and my question to you is, our house rules are when we go to bed, you're not going to be playing games. And so if we go to bed at 10 and all of your friends are playing at 11, is that going to be a fight for us?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Because we're
Very smart question,
so these were
Kevin
conversations,
Booker.
right? And so Jesse's like, he's like, I actually don't want to be like a lot of my friends where they are totally addicted to it. And he's like, I think I'm not gonna spend it. Conversations later, he's like, you guys, I knew you were gonna say no anyway, so I just didn't want the fight. I said, that is not true. We said good, better, best. And to say, if we say yes, there are parameters in our house, and can you abide by them? You're going to be okay with that? Or is it just going to be another fight for us? Because if it is, maybe it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Because when we go to bed, you're not going to play.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he decided not to, and I thought I was proud of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I
My
wouldn't
kids
have
aren't
said-
playing at
I
10 o'clock
wouldn't
either
have
because
said
they only get it
no,
on
and
Thursday.
we would have done it in the living room. We wouldn't
Yeah.
have been in his
Yeah.
bedroom.
No.
You
Oh my
know,
gosh,
but-
I can't.
Anyway,
No
okay.
screens in bedrooms ever.
That's our rule. Anyways, okay, so screens, research has proven screens and isolation usually do not bring joy, okay? And so just as parents, helping our kids do many, if not most things in real time, and we model this as well, right? Because the ultimate goal is digital health. So that when our kids are off to college, like Izzy is right now, and they're lonely and they're sad and they're depressed and they're discouraged in college someday, we want them to help we want them to be able to regulate on their own, but to be able to regulate with people and not just be alone in their room on their screens. And we need to help them know the recipe, right? The proper recipe. It's going to be different for everybody, of like, it's okay to have a little bit of alone time and recharge time and just hiding time.
Binge a rom-com,
But-
under the covers.
Yeah,
That's what
right.
the
But
small
also
girls do.
compared to real relationships in real time, right? Because when we're isolated all the time, no matter if it's on our phone, on a movie or whatever, like, we are disrupting the way God created us to be. We were created to do life in relationship. Different amounts of relationship for all of us, introverts versus extroverts, but that's the ultimate goal, right? Digital health.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimate goal.
I think you internally know when it's offset.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I
like,
think
if
so.
you're honest with yourself, like sometimes Kurt and I will look up and we're all on our phones in the living room, and Kurt will be like, "Hey guys, in like 20 minutes, we're all gonna put our phones down, including
It's nice
us.
to give them a warning too. Like, say goodnight to all your friends, because we're all getting
And
we're
we're all
wrapping
gonna
up.
play
Yeah.
a game you don't want to play face to
Yeah.
face,
or watch a show together,
or
whatever.
something. We're all just gonna take some off-screen
Yeah,
time.
I think that's good. And
Sam always
it's not
picks
a
up-
one and done conversation ever.
No,
is it?
it's
Never,
constant.
never, right?
It's constant reminding.
Yes.
Constant. Yeah.
So I don't know. It was a Plexus convention. Were you at the one where the generational speaker spoke? The guy who has his degree in studying generations, which was the coolest talk ever. I took tons of notes. Like millennials, Gen Zs, Gen X, the boomers, right? That's what he does for a living. He studies the generations. And his theory, his hypothesis, because we're not there yet, but he's like, everything is cyclical, right? Like the mullets, the styles of clothing. His prediction is when our kids become parents, they are going to be done.
Yep.
They're going to be done with. They're going to be like, I am raising my kids differently. They are not going to be raised to have a phone in their hands from the time they're, which is super interesting, right? And we can't say I told you so.
I hope
But,
so.
like,
I hope so.
But they're going
Guy,
to do not be
there's a-
surprised to see a major shift in technology being shut way down.
There's a pastor that I listened to, Sky Katani, and he said the same, something very, very similar. He said that he thinks it's going to be our children, and because we're the natives of this, we didn't know, we didn't have the research, you know better, do better kind of thing. Just like cigarette smoke and
Right.
drinking and all those things, that legislation will start coming in.
Yeah.
Like they're going to
Yeah.
start holding people accountable
A little more.
because
And they're trying to do that now.
yeah,
They're trying
because
to do
there's
that
so
now,
much,
right?
you know.
I mean, they're trying to do that now, but like technically you can't have Snapchat until you're 13, but all you have to do is go in and change your age. You know, they say you're not allowed till you're 13 because that protects them. But what
Right.
they're working toward is to have it be a way stronger legislation than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's allowed on there, like the advertisements, the things like that, the way in which
Yes.
the cookies and the like buttons, they're trying to, and that's what he thinks is going to happen, and I agree, is that just like smoking, Joe Cool and all of that stuff was
Right.
allowed, and you could smoke everywhere, and now it's becoming more and more.
Oh, you can
like-
actually get cancer. Shoot.
well, and like now, now it's so weird to us, like. If you watch on Netflix,
Mhm.
if there's like an old movie, it will say cigarette smoking, like
Yeah.
as one of the warnings. It'll be
Yes.
like sexuality, mature language, cigarette smoking, and Peter's like, what? When did that become a thing?
Yeah.
But it's because
Right.
our kids have grown up where there's no cigarette smoking on planes.
And
or,
that's not even a temptation for our kids.
No,
generation.
because-
for us it was like you're
No.
cool if you smoke at the smoking pole, and for our kids it's like that's so gross. My teeth and I'll get lip cancer, and you know what I mean. Like, so like they know it's not even like for most it's not
Right.
really even a thing.
but isn't that weird that
So
Peter
weird,
was like,
yeah.
when did that become
Yeah.
a thing?
So that's his theory anyway. Is that when our teens
I
become
agree.
parents, they will have had
I'm-
enough and will want to raise their own children very differently.
Praise the Lord.
Okay, so I feel like the question across the board that I always hear people and I always ask people myself, and when I research and when I study, is like, so when is the right time to introduce it, right? When is the right time to let your kid have a phone? Wouldn't it be easy if it was like, at this age, your child's brain is developed enough so that they can have this? And at this age, it is recommended, like when you go to a doctor's visit,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? But the common theme that I see across the board is delay is the way. It's not going away, so we need to figure out what we're going to do with it, but delay it for as long as you can. So what I find interesting, even with my kids being spread out the age they are, Caden is 19, and like if you were to do the generational talk with that guy, Caden's considered a cusper. He's on the cusp of the next generation. So he kind of escaped the media boom, whereas like it wasn't really a thing through his teen years even,
Same.
and now his friends that are all his age in their 19s and 20s, they all have phones, but like they, like Caden just got on Facebook for Facebook Marketplace to look for trucks and boats to buy. Like it's not really a thing for them. It's like, man, and they use it for like whatever, but it's not like Jesse's age, and Ransom's a little bit, but Jesse's in the thick of like, this is life, this is our world. And Ransom's class as an 8th grader, because I'm an older mother, a lot of his classmates, they're the firstborns, and he's my thirdborn, right? So a lot of those parents, it's just interesting talking to them when I'm with those parents, is they have firstborns, and so they're trying to find the way, they're navigating for the first time when we're navigating for the third time. But Ransom and even London's age, it's like, heck no, they're not having this until they're this age. They're not even, where there's actually conversations being had of, you know what I mean, where about Jesse, Sam,
Yeah.
they're, you
A
know,
lot of backtracking.
yes, a lot of backtracking. And so,
I should
but
have
we've
done
got the
this.
research now too, right? Like 20 plus years of research. And so what they're seeing across the board is delay is the way. It shouldn't be a willy-nilly decision just because everyone's doing it because your kid asked for it. I don't think supercomputer access, like a supercomputer in your kid's pocket, is something you just wing with your kids. But it's a progression, right? And so my favorite podcast that I listened to was by a psychologist. He's like, it's a progression. So you go from no to not now to where we are now, yes, but I have access to your passwords and I have access to your phone anytime I want to eventually, okay, it's yours, and you are, you're on your own, and we're here to offer advice if you want to ask for it, but you have your own convictions. We don't have your password. We're not going to ask. We don't know. It's your life. Do you know what I mean? But it's a progression, right?
Good.
Just like there are laws of the land where kids aren't allowed to drive before they're 16, they're not allowed to drink before they're 21. We as parents really need to think about timing before we just go with the flow and allow our kids full freedom, before we really do our homework and we really seek the Lord. Reasons should not be just for convenience and this makes life easier. That's a really, really big one. Well, it's easier. My kids go to 3 different schools, so it's just easy. That's not necessary. You could get a bark phone for your kid for that. A bark phone is literally just they can call you. They don't have to have access to the world on that. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't be just a quick yes because your kid asked for it for his birthday. It shouldn't just be because your phone plan allows for everyone to have their own phone. So how cool is that? There should be a plan with conversations and with expectations.
And limits.
And limits, all the things, right? God made us parents over our kids for a reason. We are their covering, and this is our job. We've gotten used to defining ourselves by how the world defines us, by how culture defines us, and we should not be doing things the way the rest of the world does. There will be times in our kids' lives and in our lives where we might be left out of something forever or for a time because God asked that of his kid, and that's okay. Right? Like, we're raising men and women to have strong shoulders and broad backs and to do what God asks of them. And so we need to not be weak parents. And I'm not just talking about media, I'm talking about life. That not to always fix our kids' problems for them. That's why it's also important to find like-minded people who share similar convictions as we do, right? The people in our life, the people who we do life with will have a huge impact on who you become as a young man or woman. We talk about this with our kids all the time. We become like the people we hang around. We become like the people in our innermost circle. And bottom line, there's going to be a cost either way, right? No matter what we choose. So sometimes we're going to swim upstream and feel lonely. Sometimes media will master us, and we might have to find that supercomputer was more powerful than what we were ready for, and we need to backtrack a little bit. This is an individual decision for parents, and we really need to seek the Lord's face on the timing for each individual child. And it might not be the same age for each kid as to when they're allowed access to certain platforms. It's not a cut and dry thing, or at least I don't think it should be. And so, I heard, I'm going to read this and I'm going to tell a story that I heard with this. Until our kids are ready to guard their own hearts, as parents, it's our responsibility to guard it for them. Satan wants to kill, steal, and destroy all the good plans that God has for our kids' lives. And as parents, for a time, and especially in the younger middle school years, the younger teen years, it's our job to set guardrails over their lives. It is not our job to be their bestie yet. And also some big conversations that we have with our teen sons in these years of delaying and yes, but with these parameters is we don't want the pressure to perform or conform to keep us from a life of conviction too, right? Like, if we feel strongly before the Lord that we're not supposed to do something, even if it feels like we're standing alone, there's going to be times when they as adults are going to be asked by the Lord to maybe stand and have to do hard things too. Sometimes that is what God asks for his kids. Okay, so the progression comes for sure, right? Again, it's not about fear-based parenting. I want to say that over and over again. But it's about seeing who our kids are becoming and who they want to become. So this mother said this quote. Her son is now, as a grown man, she and her son did this podcast together. It was on social media thing. But he is a Christian music artist. He writes his own music, beautiful artist, and recorded lots of albums. And when he was little, she was saying that she's like, part of my job was about seeing who my kids are becoming or who they want to become and helping them to get there. Protecting and then coaching and guiding with eventual full freedom to live according to their own convictions. That's the ultimate goal, right? That they really make great decisions from their own heartfelt convictions based on their own individual walk with the Lord. But there was this season in his teen years, and he was an older teen even, where they didn't allow secular music in their home or in their car. And he's like, Mom, so many of my Christian friends play secular music too. Like, why can't I? And she was like, we just saw this draw in him. Like, we saw this gift that the Lord had clearly placed on his life, but we also saw this draw and this kind of like the lure of the world. And so she's like, we're just asking you to honor us in this. Again, he could do whatever he wanted, when he's on his own, and they would never know. But she's like, we're asking you to honor us. We see who you want to become. We see who you're becoming. We see what God has on your life. And if you trust us, this is what we want you to fill your heart and your brain with in these years where Like, this is where you think you want to go. And in the podcast, he said, I'm so thankful for that season, because he said, I know that my life would be different now if they just let me listen to whatever I wanted to. He's like, I would be writing secular music. I know that I would be. But I just thought that was an interesting, and he chose to honor them too. You know what I mean? Because you can listen to secular music wherever you want to. But like, she's like, we saw who he wanted to become and who he was becoming. And we also saw the draw that the world had on him. And so she said, just, this is what we want you to fill your heart and your mind and your thoughts with, because this is where we see you going. And that's where he ended up. So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool.
That's huge that he like
Honored it, yeah. Okay, so we go from no to not yet to okay, but I can have your passwords, and we're going to navigate all kinds of things together while you're still under our roof. So we guide them, right, and help them remember things like social media is permanent, nothing is private, nothing really disappears, it's all searchable. There are real-time dangers. This could even affect future jobs for you, as your employers will surely be looking at your social media history, right? Like, just be thinking whatever you put online is there forever and to stay. That's what I say to Jesse all the time. You and I were quick to get a laugh, or to maybe not have a filter, or to maybe be like, I know I could get some reactions, but just be careful with it. It's there forever, and so many things can also be misread in tone and text too. You know, where you may be trying to be funny and you like deeply offend so many people or whatever. You know, but eventually we get to okay, now you're totally on your own to manage your life, and I'm here to advise you if you want me to. I don't have your password, but it's still a good idea to place filters on your devices, just like Dad and I still do. Having layers of accountability is always wise, no matter your age. And we tell them even with passwords on your phones, like, it's not like we're going to check your phone every day, or we even want to check your phone every day. It's just the fact, like Kevin and I, like we just had this conversation with the boys the other day, like I can look into Dad's phone history whenever I want to. I can look at all of his texts whenever I want to. Like, and he knows that, and he's like, yeah, you have free reign with my phone. Do I? I can't remember the last time I did.
I've never
but
done
just
that.
knowing that I can,
Yeah.
you know, and same him with me. Like, it's just layers of accountability, and it's layers of protection, and you should always have that in your life. Always. You should always have an accountability partner. You should always set guardrails and parameters on all your devices. You know, we have covenant eyes, all of us. So, but it's communication, right? And we tell our kids too, bottom line, like, you guys are super smart. Like, we know you can get away with just about anything you wanted to behind our back, and we would never know. If you wanted to sin, no matter what form of parental protection we put around you, you'll figure out how to navigate. I know that. You know what I mean? So that's why, as parents, we need to talk openly and pray daily about their hearts, right? We want them to want to run hard after Jesus. We want them to want to make the right decision. We want them to feel free to come to us at any point when they make mistakes, because they will, and we do. We all make mistakes. We're not perfect. And I also tell them, I also pray that your sin will find you out. If ever you're engaged in things you shouldn't be engaged in, I pray that we will find out about it and the Lord will show us. Like, that is a prayer I pray over you daily, which they think is hilarious, but I'm like, it's true. I pray for that. But I also pray for tender consciences, and that you'll fear the Lord. I pray that you'll be able to differentiate truth from lies, that God will convict your hearts to take strong stands, to be leaders amongst your peers, for you to dare to be different. Like, I pray for all of those things. But I do pray because then I'm going to pray harder for you. And you've got a warrior behind you all day, every day, praying for you. And you're for your whole life. You know what I mean? Okay, so here's my delay is the way real-time navigation with my kids, okay? Like I said about Caden, he's a cusper. Like at 19, I think he just got Facebook for Facebook Marketplace. Like, that is all he has. It is all he cares about, any texts, okay? Jesse, as you all know, has been chomping at the bit for years. He just got Be Real last year, so he was 16. Whenever it all came out, we all got it. Was it just last year? It hasn't been long anyways. And just this past week, at 17 years of age, he's 17 in a month and a half, we let him have Snapchat, okay? It's been a 2+ more year conversation. And for me, personally, because you guys know me, it's been an intensive, full entire year of praying and fasting and pastoral counsel. I talked to my pastor about it. Kevin and I have had many dates where we talk about it. We've talked to a lot of mothers who are further down the road in the trenches, who we like how they parent, we like how their kids have turned out, right? Like, whatever. I personally still don't love it, solely for the fact that it was originally created by 4 teenage boys as a sexting app called Peekaboo. And that's the history of Snapchat. Our kids are on a rebranding sexting platform. I think we could do better. But here's where in real time delays the way it went down with our family, right? We said no for a really long time. We didn't even say not yet. We said no for a really long time and had many, many conversations, even about, I'm not sure if this is even just going to be something that we're just not going to have until when you get out on your own, you can do what you want to do with it. But while we are under our roof, I just feel really strongly about it. We don't want you to have it. And that was kind of our stance for a while. And what my righteous, holier than thou, legalistic heart wanted was, I was like, I want our family to be like the voice of, let's create a revolution. Let's dare to be different. Let's not have to look like the rest of our people. Let's just be so different. We could do better than this. You know, that's what I want. But the reality is I have a kid whose extreme extroversion personality is his mother on crack, right? And he attends a school where the majority of his friends and sport teams use Snapchat as their main form of conversation. His closest friends all use it. And we have had many tearful conversations where he has felt completely left out and not a part of a lot of things. Do I feel like when your kid cries and they want something, you always cave? I do not. But I also think that there are situations where you weigh in all the factors, which is what we've done, right? And so we have had many conversations about friends in his circle who have Snap on phones that their parents have no idea about. We've had many conversations about how he's tried hard to honor us and not hide things from us, even when he could. He's told us about many Be Real pictures of his female classmates that he's deleted because they took a more provocative picture than he wanted in his feed. He said he's come to us on just recently 2 different times to his dad, very humbly, very honoring, saying, Dad, can I have a conversation with you about Snapchat? And can I just tell you why I really want it? Very honoring, very humble, when for a long time Kevin said, our answer is no, and we're asking you to honor us. And so, and he has proven in very specific ways just how, I don't think he's perfect. Oh my gosh. Like I said, he's my kid on crack. But I've said to him, I don't think that you're going to be snapping naked pictures and send them to all your friends. I mean,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think, the answer is not no because I don't trust you. The answer is, I don't want a supercomputer in your pocket that you have 24-hour access to, and I think Satan's a jerk. And so, but anyway, he's honored our not yet for years when close friends were allowed these platforms at 14, 15, 16, he's 17. So this was our delay, 17 years of age, while he still has 2 years under our roof, right? He still doesn't have Instagram, he still doesn't have YouTube on his phone, but we've said yes to this. So do we have concerns? For sure. Am I on Snapchat now? Sure am. Do I have full freedom to access his phone at any time? I do. He hands it to me freely. We have a hilarious blast taking pictures. Have we set very clear guidelines and expectations for how he uses this platform? Absolutely. Very clear guidelines. Do I think he'll come across some things he shouldn't? For sure. Do I worry about things his friends might send him? Yup. Do I wish the delay was longer? I do, although I think we're the longest of most of his friends, and I would even dare say all of his friends who really care about social media. He has a handful of friends who still don't have it, but they don't care about it. They're more in the Caden camp, so that doesn't really count to me because he so badly wanted it.
Yeah.
But before the Lord and Kevin, I do have peace about it, and I talked to our pastor about it extensively, and I do have peace about it. Bottom line, and this is what I said to our pastor, I said, these are my 2 struggles. I feel strong. I don't like it. I think it's dumb. I also understand the world that he lives in. And my 2 biggest concerns are, I don't want to lose his heart. And that verse in the Bible that says, provoke not your child to wrath. You know, and so I said, and I fear that we're dancing in that arena. And is he ultimately still responsible before the Lord for how he honors and how he obeys? For sure. But these are my concerns and these are my fears and these are what I'm seeing. And so he's like, well, why don't you just, he's so chill anyways, but he's like, why don't you trial it with him? He's almost 17 and have all the conversations. Like we've said, I mean, bottom line, parents, you own your kids' phones, right? It's not their phones. So if at any point anything happens, you can take the phones away, right? I'm not saying that that's happening with Jesse, but like.
My husband's rule is that the day you tell me that I cannot have your phone.
Yeah, that's a good
the
rule.
day you lose it.
That's good, for sure. I love that.
Entirely.
I love that.
Yeah.
So
good.
when one of my kids went the other day said, well, I bought this. And I was like, but did you?
Yeah.
And we,
Did you?
who pays the phone bill? Who pays the internet bill? And they were like, we were just having an open
Sure.
conversation. It
Almost
wasn't like
silly,
I
yeah.
wasn't asking
Yeah.
for their phone.
Mm-hmm.
For us, we were a little bit earlier. We were 13 when they all got it. And for me, me and Peter have talked about that going back in time. I think we would have delayed more. But I had a cousin that was murdered through social media, and she befriended somebody on Facebook that was actually somebody she knew, and he was pretending to be someone else. Basically, that's now known as catfishing.
Mm-hmm.
And he convinced her to go to the end of her driveway. She went to go get pot, I think, or something. I mean,
Yes.
and
all that stuff can be sold.
and
Brought to your door via Uber.
yes, and so she
On
walked
Snap.
thinking she was meeting one person. It was this guy, and he abducted and murdered her. So for me, she was 16 years old, and 15, almost 16. And so for Peter and I, one of the reasons why we decided to do it at 13 is developmentally. So
We don't have all the platforms.
no, they were allowed to have a phone. This is just a
Mhm.
phone. And that was because 13-year-olds are still more compliant than 16-year-olds, like just the way that their brains work. And our particular kids' brains works. Like they're less likely to fight you on things when they're 13. So we thought, okay, what we'll do is we'll start with a phone where they just are so used to us having their password.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know it, we check it, we have it. And
I would
so
recommend a Bark phone for young parents who haven't just
Yeah.
entered this realm because
Yeah.
it's literally just the phone.
yeah,
It's
and
not like
that's
all
what
the
those
apps.
weren't options
No,
back in
I didn't even
back,
know about them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we started that way because I wanted their life in social media and with this supercomputer in their pocket to have me involved in it from the very beginning. And so that's how we started it, because I knew, especially with my spicy first one, if that we started that process at 16, the battles, it would already be like, what? No, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want it to be battling. I wanted it to be something that was just something that was in their life and with me in it from the very beginning. And so that's how we started it. The social media thing, it is so different for each kids. Our girls, they struggled more with the FOMO and the friending stuff and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And then with our boys was more of the visual,
Right.
me being nervous about that. And so in some of those ways, I wish I could have gone back. I was literally one of the first, because I have the oldest kids in our group of friends.
How old is Emma?
She's 21.
Okay,
Emma's
so he's
22.
19. He's not too far behind.
So Peter and I wish we had delayed more on some of those things, but we were also with all of us, we were all kind of navigating it together. There was no research, there was no documentary of, the social anything.
Dilemma, right.
Social dilemma. There was none of those things. The thing that I have found is that for my kids in particular, they are comfortable with us being a part of their life and we've created that relationship. Emma has a new special friend that we really, really like. And the other day he was over and we were all sitting around and we were talking about this in particular, about how strict we were as parents. And we were just having a super open conversation. We were talking about things that I wish that we had delayed longer. How would you guys have handled it? Like just this really frank conversation. But then again, I have a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 16, almost 17-year-old. So I have almost all adults. And so we are totally in a different realm. And we were having this very open conversation, and they were saying, yeah, Mom, I don't know how I would have handled it, because you don't know until you know.
I don't know. Well, Kevin asked Jesse that conversation. He's like, Jesse, what would you do as a parent? In my shoes, we're learning this right along with you. What would you do? And he's like, I don't know, Dad. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he's like, so that's where we're at. We don't know.
We
We're
don't
trying
know.
to figure it out.
Yeah, and having that real, but there is a place in which, and I think you found that with Jesse, where I trust my kids. I trust my kids to tell me if they're in trouble, I have trust with my kids if they see something that they're not supposed to, and I've seen that as they've grown up in this world. I also believe that my kids are going to mess up, and I know that they're going to make bad choices, but I also believe that that is going to be used for the good of their constitution and how they mature and grow in their faith. And it was interesting because we had that conversation, and then the next day Em came to visit, and we were sitting and talking, and she was like, Mom, Austin was, oh, whoops, I mean, not supposed to, her special friend.
George.
Her special friend.
George and Mustang Sally.
George was like,
Jorge.
was like so blown away at the openness of our family to talk about stuff. And I said, oh, did he think it was weird? Did he think, because I'm insecure because this is the new friend and I want him to think we're cool. And she was like, yeah, he was just, he's never been around anybody whose family talks so openly about stuff.
Have him come over to our house sometime.
I think that's the key is to start that early with all the things, and then when these things
with all the
enter
things
in,
where nothing is not on the table.
it's
nothing,
not that weird that mom and dad care so much about this, because we care about
Everything. Yeah.
And I could there's so many things, right? I could speak into it, but this is getting
Okay, I'm
long,
almost
and we
done
have
to
to
wrap
go
up. Okay,
soon,
yes. So just to wrap it up, we're kind of entering into the season, right, where we're like on the sidelines now. We're coaches, right, in this season of our teen parenting. So, we're out of the because I said so parenting. No, because I said so. Now it's okay. Here you go. Go and play your sport. But we're coaching. But as a coach, we can still pull our player out of the game if we need to, right? So, we're still called to cover and protect. So, but I have peace about this decision. Do I have his heart? I think I do. Was I in danger of losing it? I think I was. Do we have conversation about all the things?
Yeah.
All the things. And this is why I say to parents, like, the older my kids get, the more bedtime tuck-in is more sacred to me. And I say, always tuck your babies in tonight if they ask you. And if they don't, then offer. But I'm telling you what, at nighttime for me and my teenage boys, that is when the heart opens up and the floodgates open, and I hear all the things that are in their heart. I hear all the hurts, all the stresses, all the fears, all the worries, and that's when I know I have their heart, right? And that's when I can gently speak into things as well, and into their fears, into their dreams, into their whatever. Do you know what I mean? So anyways, to wrap it up, bottom line, most experts will tell you delay as long as you can. Have open and honest conversations, cover your kids in prayer, pray for iron sharpening friends in their lives and for godly mentors to come aside. If and when, whatever you allow, set clear guidelines and expectations. So for us, no phones in the bedrooms or bathrooms. No computers in their rooms at night. When we go to bed at night, they're off their phones. Their phones stay in the kitchen charging at night. Make sure your kid knows this is a privilege. Their phone actually belongs to you since you pay for all the things. Talk to them about accountability and that you have access to their passwords, but they always want accountability in their life. Educate yourself on the dangers that are out there. Talk about addiction. Set guidelines for the amount of time they're allowed on their devices. Clear is kind, right? So we're very clear in our home. If we go to bed before you, your phones are done. You're done for the night. Say goodnight to your friends. We're going to bed. And even if you guys want to watch a show, it's on the big screen and you three boys are watching it together. You're not watching on individual screens while we're in bed. Teach social etiquette. For us, when dad comes home, you literally see him for 2 hours a day. The phones go on the fridge. We have supper together as a family where we're looking at each other, we're visiting, we're talking about our day. And then we're going to maybe watch a show together or play a game together. We will let you say good night to all your friends, but like they're on the fridge until evening, until like our family time's done. I want to leave you with just some really great resources, okay? In the form of books, podcasts, and Facebook. Some books. I've read all of them but one. This one I just heard on a podcast yesterday. So I don't know, but I trust the person who recommended it. It's called It's Complicated by Dana Boyd. A really great book for more geared toward younger kids that have like fun activities. This is what I would maybe recommend you do with your kids before you give them media or phones, by Andrea Davis, a book called Creating a Tech Healthy Family. A book that I love for kids our age, teen years, whatever, by Andy Crouch, The Tech Wise Family. And then his adult daughter now, has written a book with her dad, Amy and Andy Crouch, My Tech Wise Life. and they love technology, but they're like, it's kind of like, this is our rhythms. Like they, you know, as family growing up, it was like 1 hour a day, their phones were all off. They had a family day where their phones were all off. Like there's seasons where your phones are on and off, whatever. Great podcasts. One really, really good podcast I love is called Scrolling to Death. It's the number 2, Scrolling to Death. She does a ton of research just on the dangers that are out there, what's big and happening right now, big tech stuff. A lot of them are pretty short, but just awareness. Focus on the Family broadcast has a ton of resources and things on media, and Feeding the Mouth That Bites You. And they all have various stances on it, because we're all going to have various stances on it, but they're all, I think, really solid and good. 2 documentaries. Highly recommend you watch The Social Dilemma with your kids, and highly recommend you watch Childhood 2.0 with your teenagers, not your littles. On Facebook, there's a Facebook group called Parenting in a Tech World. The Scrolling to Death lady, she's on Instagram as well, does a lot of lives, a lot of reels, whatever. And then Officer Gomez on Facebook.
Him.
I love him. He's hilarious, and he's funny. And he'll just, you know, and he always ends every post with "Happy parenting,"
Because he knows it's miserable.
Yeah, so it's just really good. So those are some great resources that weren't really fully readily available to us when our kids were younger.
Yeah.
So
I wish we had those.
yeah,
things.
we are kind of raising our teenagers anyway as digital natives, and I think younger parents with younger kids, just learning and seeking godly counsel, seeking the Lord, talking to your spouse, all the things, and open, honest communication with your kiddos, and loving them deeply and covering them in prayer, and trusting that the Lord loves them way more than you do. Thus endeth my soapbox.
It wasn't very
So
soapboxy
well
at
done.
all.
What time is it? 11:36. Holy crap.
I know. It's always like, we gotta wrap this up, I go to the bathroom, and then we gotta
Okay. Jesse's a track meet in Ellsworth today. That's a good time to roll. Next Monday, Ransom has one in Hamden at 3:30.
Progress one on Saturday. Cameron again.
Jesse has a lot on Saturday as well. So you're able to grab Lundy tomorrow and she can hang with you?
Thank you for reminding me.
I should pick up her.
Remind me again.
But I have to go look and do that for practice.
Okay.
These ladies. Was she off?
It's okay. No, push it down.
I did
There
it.
you go.
Woo! Okay.
Like
Macbeth. I'll follow you, Rachie, to the. Oh, look.